Today, we're diving into a legend that's both ancient and incredibly powerful. It's a story about a destructive force so immense it was only ever called upon when all, and I mean all, other hope was lost. This is the story of Samhaar Bhairava, the ultimate destroyer.
But let's kick things off with a question, just to frame this whole thing. What do you do when evil becomes, well, literally unstoppable? When the very act of fighting your enemy only makes them stronger? I mean, what happens when every single blow you land just creates a new foe? This isn't just some riddle. For the gods, this was a terrifying reality that threatened to swallow everything.
And to answer that question, you have to understand the being who was summoned to face this impossible challenge. A force of absolute, final power, Samhaar Bhairava.
So who or what exactly is Samhaar Bhairava? Well, think of him as the most fearsome, most intense aspect of Lord Shiva. He's a manifestation that only appears when injustice has gone way, way beyond any conceivable limit. He isn't just some random destroyer. He's the embodiment of final justice. He is the force that brings an absolute, definitive end to an era of evil, all to protect Dharma, that sacred cosmic order.
Now, every great hero needs a truly impossible villain, right? And in this story, the problem facing the entire universe was, you guessed it, a completely unstoppable demon army.
So the story goes that during a time of deep cosmic chaos, this demon king, Kalanitra, just unleashed a reign of terror across all three worlds. We're talking the heavens, the earth, and the netherworlds. Absolutely no one was safe. A shadow of pure despair just fell over all of creation.
So what was Kalanitra's secret? What made him so powerful? Well, through some serious penance, he earned a boon, a kind of divine gift from the creator god Brahma. And this gift, it made him virtually invincible and set the stage for a really, really unique and terrifying kind of warfare.
Okay, just think about how horrifying this power is. Imagine you're a warrior on the battlefield. Step 1. You actually manage to land a hit and wound one of these demons. But then, Step 2. A single drop of its blood spills onto the ground. And then, bam! Step 3. From that one drop, a brand new, fully formed, identical demon warrior just springs to life. You're literally fighting an army that multiplies every time you hurt it.
So the result was absolutely devastating. The harder the gods fought, the bigger Kalanitra's army got. Their best efforts were literally feeding the enemy. For every single demon they managed to strike down, more would just rise up to take its place. The situation was completely hopeless. So, in their desperation, the gods and sages turned to Lord Shiva. He was their absolute last resort.
And this is where the tide begins to turn. The desperate plea of the gods is heard, and it leads to one of the most dramatic moments in all of Hindu mythology. The third eye opens. Let's just walk through how this happened. First, you have the plea. The totally defeated gods go to Lord Shiva and explain this impossible situation. This leads to pure cosmic rage. Hearing about this unbelievable injustice, Shiva's fury causes him to open his third eye. And finally, the emergence. Out of that blinding, fiery energy, a terrifying divine form appears. Samhaar Bhairava has arrived.
And his appearance? Whoa, it was something else. A body as dark and endless as the void itself, but just blazing with divine fire. In his hands he held weapons of absolute destruction, a sword, a trident, a mace, a noose. And around his neck, a garland of ghosts. His very presence gave off an aura so powerful it could literally incinerate sin on the spot. This was not a god of peace, this was a god of finality.
And upon his arrival, he made one simple, chilling declaration. Now the end of unrighteousness is certain. That's it. There was no doubt, no room for negotiation. There was only one inevitable conclusion.
So the ultimate warrior is here, but the fundamental problem hasn't gone away. How on earth do you defeat an enemy whose blood creates more of himself? How do you defeat a form of immortality?
This right here, this is the cosmic chess match. It's brilliant. On one side, you have the problem. The demon's power only kicks in if his blood actually touches the ground. So, on the other side, Bhairav's solution. Don't try to avoid spilling blood. Instead, you neutralize it in that split second before it can ever reach the earth.
So how did he do it? Not with a bigger sword or a stronger army. No, he used a far more potent weapon, a sacred fire mantra. This was a spiritual tool, a specific chant designed for a very precise, tactical purpose. He strode onto the battlefield and began to chant, Kritivasa Bhairava, Samharya. And this was the key that was about to completely undo the Demon King.
The effect was immediate. It was absolute. The sacred flame that came from this mantra was so intensely hot that as Bhairava fought, every single drop of the demon's blood was instantly vaporized in midair. The boon was completely nullified. With his greatest strength now totally useless, Kalanetra was vulnerable, and Bhairava swiftly brought an end to him, finally restoring peace to the three worlds.
So the battle is won, but the story, the legend, it doesn't just end there. It leaves us with a really profound question about the nature of destruction itself.
It's a fair question, right? I mean, the form of Bhairava is terrifying. The story is incredibly violent. So why on earth is this celebrated as a divine act? Why would anyone honor such a destructive force?
Well, the philosophy behind it tells us that this isn't just chaos for chaos's sake, it's a cosmic reset button. It's a necessary intervention when injustice becomes absolute, when it threatens the very balance of existence. This kind of destruction, it's about clearing away a corrupt, broken system so that a new, righteous order can finally be born. So, what this really shows us is that Samhaar Bhairava's purpose is, believe it or not, ultimately protective. Look at how this works. By destroying negative forces like fear and injustice, he simultaneously grants positive things to his devotees. Things like courage, inner strength, and the ultimate triumph of truth and justice. He destroys the bad to make way for the good.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. When you're faced with overwhelming corruption, an evil that simply refuses to be contained, when the system itself is the problem, is an act of total destruction a necessary evil, or is it maybe the highest and purest form of justice?